Well, there's essentially two narrative strands. One concerns Detective Superintendent Catherine MacLeod, who's investigating an apparently routine drug-related killing, and the other concerns Jasmine Sharp, who is a sort of former acting student who's had to drop out, and she's working for her uncle, who's a private investigator. When he goes missing, she has to try and find him, and the main lead she finds is a case that he's been working on concerning a family that disappeared 27 years previously, and it's been a mystery that keeps coming back in terms of the press. It's one of these stories that has sort of haunted Glasgow for decades because no one ever knew what happened to these people, and as the book develops, the two parallel strands ultimately become entangled. I'm always wanting to sort of push myself into new areas as a writer, and I'd written so many comic, satirical crime novels, and to get to the stage where it was kind of hard to top the last one, and I thought I'd learned an awful lot in my writing over the years, and I wanted to put that to work. Specifically, I'd written a lot of books that had magic as their theme, and illusion and misdirection, and I thought the dynamic is very similar to crime fiction in that it's about misdirecting the reader. So I thought it would be good if I could use those talents and those tricks to create a whodunit. I think the main thing people are going to notice about this one is it's a lot more serious. It probably seems quite grown up compared to the juvenile humour that's sort of punctuated most of my other work. It's probably a wee bit more dark, which would probably come as a surprise to some people because they probably consider my previous work fairly dark on its own, but this is dark in a far more realistic way. So the other main thing people will notice is that the story is actually plausible when there's no top secret underground military bases. There's just things that you could be reading about in tomorrow's newspaper. I think this is a good starting point, a good introduction to my work for people who have never read my work before, because it's a standalone at this stage. You don't need to have read anything before, you don't need to be familiar with my previous work. We could call it the entry-level Chris Brookmyre novel, and I guess anybody is going to be sort of drawn in by a good mystery story, so in that respect it's the ideal place to start. I don't think I've ever written a book that was quite so vulnerable to spoilers, so what I will say is that I drew on a certain autobiographical element in that I used to work for the gas board over the summer when I was a student, and we did this infrared aerial survey, and I discovered that bodies show up as white, even ones that have been buried for 20 and 30 years. So I won't say where the bodies are buried in the story, but I will say that there's some interesting technology is brought to bear on discovering where they are.